Yo, 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 happy Wednesday night. It's your boy Mike G. We are the War Report. I'm here with Caesar Walker and B Will. Guys, Auburn has a new coach, and it was a name nobody was expecting. As a matter of fact,
Nobody.
it was a name that wasn't on anybody's list at all. Tonight, I want to start off with just our real reactions to this hire. B, I'm gonna start with you. How do we feel about this?
All right. My first reaction was, who? And once people informed me of where he was working, which was Boise State, he followed up Chris Peterson after Chris Peterson left there to go to Washington in the Pac-12. And I was a little disappointed personally. You all know, and if you've been listening, you know I wanted Bill Clark. I like that he had done more with less at UAB, especially after having his program killed for 2 years. I thought that was a good sign of what was needed here because we have a little less than our competitors. And if you don't have 100% buy-in from the big money higher ups, then you have even less than that. And I can't say I'm disappointed by this hire, though, because the first thing I thought was, well, they got outside of their habits. We didn't go back with somebody who was too familiar. We didn't go back to somebody who made us feel good. A tingle of success by the last time they were around. This is out of left field, almost literally out of left field. If you're looking at the at a map of America, and I was thinking, I'm disappointed because I didn't get my guy. But at the same time, they broke habits, and we've been stuck in a couple of habits for a while that have yielded great results in the case of the championship in 2010, but so-so results since that time. And I'm up for the adventure of let's get out of our habits. Let's try something new. We'll get into specifically his record and all that and what that means later. But my first reaction was who? And then okay.
All right.
We'll see.
All right. Caesar, how you feeling about this hire?
Overall, I'm somewhere between indifferent to optimistic. When I first heard the name, I said, really? Because I knew who this guy was. Actually, I followed Chris Peterson in Boise a lot. I was really intrigued with the success he was having, and I knew Harsin was his coordinator. I knew who Harsin was when he was at Arkansas State. We played them, I believe, in Gus Malzahn's first year. I think they went 7-5 and had a share of the Sun Belt Conference Championship that year, and then he went on to Boise where he had his success there. But once he went to Boise, I stopped keeping up with him. I knew he was a co-offensive coordinator and an offensive coordinator at Texas before landing the Arkansas State job when he was under Mack Brown. So he's worked under two established coaches in Mack Brown and Chris Peterson. So when I heard the name, I was like, really? Because to your point, he wasn't on anyone's radar. Like I think that the day of the hire, I was hearing about a possible Hugh Freeze. Like it was just information all over the place. It looked like a Gus Malzahn reverse. Like it was just a bunch of misdirection all over the place. And I was thinking they was going to make a run at Hugh Freeze. And at this point, the Auburn search was it appeared to be in shambles. So when we hired this guy, I said, okay, he's won everywhere he's been. So it's hard to be mad at that. But I think what made me happy more than anything is, to B's point, is all indications point to the fact that our athletic director stood up to the people in power and made his decision and was backed by Jay Gooch, which to me is a win, in my opinion, because had those guys gotten their way, we would have really been pissed at what would have happened. So it's hard to really be upset at the outcome because we could have done so much worse. Right. So my initial response was I was just indifferent and I was really waiting on facts to come out, which is why I'm glad as a show, guys, I'm glad we waited till tonight to talk, because I didn't have my thoughts together and I was still trying to wrap my head around what all had happened because I needed context. Was this a decision of Alan Green? Who made this decision? And once we begin to get the facts, I begin to feel lean towards the optimism part of it because this could signal a new day for Auburn.
Right. You know what? I'm going to be the dissenting justice here for a second. So hear me out, right? I think there are two trains of thoughts about how we landed up with Bryan Harsin. If we're to believe that there was any teeth to anything that's been talked about, since this weekend in terms of coaches, it feels more to me like this is the coach we ended up with because of how the process was handled. Jay Gouge made a statement yesterday. And he came out and said it's unfortunate that there was so much misinformation around this hire. Mm-hmm. I don't think there was misinformation. I think this was a diving save because of how much got exposed, right? So you guys, Caesar, you alluded to, you think that you're happy that Alan Green ended up making this decision. I'm thinking they didn't have a choice after everything that came out. Right, because you had all your initial targets turning the job down because of how it was handled. You're not going to sell to me that Bryan Harsin was at the top of your list, right? And we heard nothing about it.
Well, I don't believe he was either. But,
right. I think they ended up here. Bill Clark turned it down. Billy Napier turned it down. These guys didn't want to come here because of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. I still think that there's truth to that right now. We'll get into whether I think he's a solid hire later, but my knee-jerk reaction is he's our coach. So we got to be happy with it because this is who we've got. Right. I don't wish for him to fail. I didn't wish for Malzahn to fail. I wanted him to succeed. Right. So now that he's here, now that we've got him in the door, we've got to get behind the new coach. His record is encouraging. Again, we'll get into stats later, but my initial reaction to this is, and I'll reiterate, that they didn't really have a choice but to go this route because who were they going to hire? Everybody involved in the process.
Because everyone involved in the process, a lot of them wanted Steele. In fact, Green was being threatened to go their route. And this is why I am rooting so hard. I want to root so hard for not only Harsin, but for Green, because I feel that this is almost his way. Harsin is his Bo Nix in a sense,
right?
Where he goes, Green goes in the eyes of these boosters. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like this was him betting on himself. And so to a degree, I really want this to work for him because what other athletic director is going to come in after Green and stand toe-to-toe with these boosters moving forward?
Yeah, I just disagree. I don't think he stood toe-to-toe with the boosters. I think that they got exposed on Steele based on what came out. Thank God for reporting, right? Because the rumors started to fly, and then they had to save face. Now we really have to get out of this process because we've been exposed.
I don't think they care about getting exposed. That's the thing, Mike. I think they are giving all of us a collective middle finger and are trying to push Steele through.
Yeah, but it only mattered because all the other high-profile candidates were turning the job down, right? And maybe the blessing in this is because this all came to light. They have to let Harsin hire his own staff. I think they played Steele out of the running with the way that they handled it. Personally, that's just me, right? Yeah. I think that they wanted to give him the job, right? And then things started coming out, and it was a bad look. So now we got to go out and interview all these people, right, to make the process look legit. And then things keep coming out, and then the guys who were really top of the list said, "Wait, you want me to do what? No, man. If I'm coming in, I'm hiring my own staff. I'm running this my way."
Sure.
And then when you can't get any high profile candidate to bite, right, you end up, okay, maybe we do have to let go of the reins. Maybe we need to hire a guy. So who else can we go get? Now, we got a young up and comer here, and we're gonna deep dive. I'm gonna use that to segue into our next part of this because we got a lot to get to tonight.
Before we get into his record, I'm with you and Jay. I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was the AG standing up to the boosters and saying, we're gonna do this the right way. And there's an article posted on AL.com by John Talty. He posted it about 4 hours ago.
Yeah, I read it.
That's the article where he's getting into specifically those boosters who weren't happy with Gus's 2017 extension. They didn't think he was good enough to extend, and they had been pushing for Steele behind the scenes. That came to the surface, and they were saying that the loss to Texas A&M is what did it. And maybe, like we all thought, that press conference after A&M is really what did it. Just it sounded like the standard wasn't there. So
which we knew.
Right. Once that happened, they had enough. They were whipping the votes, I guess you could say, among the board of trustees to make a change. And that Texas A&M loss did it. Once that happened, they thought they were going to be able to just shoo Steele in there really quick. Mm-hmm. And enough momentum built again. Thank God for the media and the fans put up that campaign that said, no, we got to stop Steele. We don't want that to happen. And maybe it's because we didn't like his record as a head coach, but also because it's just a bad look to have it look like a guy that's been on the head coach's staff has been angling for his job for the last couple of years. Right. And that just didn't look good. So like Caesar was thinking, and like you were saying too, Mike, they had to back off of Steele. Now, what that left them with was, who are our actual candidates? If we're really looking, who do we got? Right. I don't think Napier was a bad name. I think Napier was a good name. I do think he was high profile in the sense that he had an established coaching record. He had already turned down some major jobs, so he was in demand. Mm-hmm. And him saying no, because I don't know did he release an official statement that said it's because I can't do things my way? I think
I think he said he was going to stay with Louisiana, and we just read between the lines.
Yeah, none of them did. To be clear, none of them did.
Well, Bill Clark apparently said something to UAB press, something to the extent of, "I'm happy where I'm at, and I just want to say if I'm going to go anywhere or make any changes, things are going to have to be run the way I want to be run." I'm paraphrasing, but it suggested that he was given hey, you want the job. And the John Talty was saying that apparently they didn't even get that deep into talk, that some of these rumors that we were hearing were false. Napier was confirmed, as far as this article saying. Napier was a definite. They wanted him. They were going after him. Clark was not, or at least how deep those talks got with Clark. That was not necessarily confirmed. So some of this may have been hearsay.
I'll be honest with you. I read the article. I don't know who to believe. Like you can either believe that's the university safe face or what, you know what I mean? Because again, the lie will circle around the block twice before the truth even gets out of the driveway. So we don't even know what to believe at this point, right? Is the university's word against the candidates at this point.
Right.
But I like that story in that it did try to provide some context. I just didn't know if that was Auburn's way of saving face with the overall process or what. Right. But it was some information, or it added more context to what we've been talking about the past several days.
Right. It was some of what we did know, what we always thought was happening. It was some of that, but also knowing that some of the stuff we were getting fed may not have been 100% correct. So we kind of had to take it with a grain of salt. But I am agreeing with you, Mike, that I do not think they said we got to give Gus his walking papers. Let's go get Bryan Harsin top of the list. I do not think that was the case.
Coach Hardy has a point, and I was debating where I wanted to mention this, but I had heard a rumor that Napier. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. I think at this point, the administration wanted to go do bargain shopping. They wanted to get a coach who they felt was better than Gus on paper, and save some money giving Gus his buyout. So if you're trying to do some bargain shopping here, that's going to eliminate some people. It's probably going to eliminate Sarkisian because of his buyout. It's definitely going to eliminate Cristobal because of his buyout. So you got a coach who you like on paper, who interviewed well, whose buyout was $250,000. And apparently Napier was demanding, because he had been holding out, he again betting on himself. The rumor is, coming from people within Auburn, is that he asked for a lot of money that Auburn was not willing to pay him. And so again, he's saying he declined an offer, but I am hearing this is a rumor, that that he wanted too much money, and Auburn didn't officially offer him. So again, back to the AL.com, you're gonna believe what you want to believe.
Right.
I'm not here to tell you what to believe.
Yeah.
I think you're muted, Mike, or we can't hear you. But anyway, why you get that together? B, what do you think? That's just my. I just think that the administration wanted to bargain shop and get a coach. Given where they were, they wanted to get a coach where they didn't have to pay another buyout to get the guy they wanted. Is what it sounds like.
I think that plays a factor. It makes the whole process. It to me, it gives validation to the fact that they definitely did push Gus out to install Steele quickly. Because if not, if you were really going to go for the best coach out there, then why would you fire Gus this year? You could have waited till next year. You could have actually let him have the third year with Bo, another year under Chad Morris. The last year, get a couple of these juniors on board to say we're going to give it a last hoorah, not risk messing up the recruiting class. You could have given Gus one more year, made it cheaper next year, because honestly, I don't think any of those first two guys, Napier, Clark, I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I think they would have still been in play next year. This was an obvious, let's do it now. We got our excuse. And because they didn't wait that year, that buyout was more expensive for Gus. Now you got a bargain hunt on the opposite end. And I'm with you that I do think that was somewhat of a factor too.
Yeah, we don't know. We just have to find out. I know one of the things that we wanted to get into Bryan Harsin. And that's we can go ahead and transition to that. What tell me on paper, what are some of the things that once you begin to research this guy, what are some things that stood out to you?
Well, number one, you like that he is a former quarterback, a quarterback coach, an OC, because what we were hurting, where we were hurting the most was we could not get top tier quarterback recruits to come here. We could not get them to play better than they entered, no matter who it was that came here.
Mm-hmm.
And our wide receiver talent suffered because of that. And our offensive line talent, to some extent, because of Gus's system and the reputation it had garnered in college and also in the pros, it was hard to get top tier wide receivers and offensive linemen to come here. So that was a concern. And what we may have fixed with this guy is we got a quarterback coach. We got a more of a no nonsense quarterback coach. Apparently, we got somebody who and I mean, just looking at some clips of him, like he's not, Gus was a player's coach. He took the bullets for the players, when Bo was playing bad. And I still think we're going to win a championship with Bo. And listen, man, that's nice and that's cool. But sometimes we got to hold these guys accountable. And I think we all wanted more accountability when it came to Bo Nix's play. So it's refreshing to see that, knowing that he was the OC who called that Boise State upstate of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, so he's got some balls. This guy is gonna call it to win it, and I definitely like that. We've lost a handful of games simply from Gus playing too conservative and calling games too conservative. 2017 at LSU comes to mind. So that's refreshing. Those are positives for me. When go
ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, when I look at his head coaching career and his head coaching record, and I look at him taking over a school like Arkansas State coming from behind Gus. That was the third coach in 3 years at that school. He was the third coach in 3 years. Somebody had been there behind Gus.
Right.
Gus was only there 1 year. He was the third coach in 3 years. I don't look at his 7-5 record there as a knock on him, because listen, you are dealing with what you got. You didn't recruit these guys. You didn't recruit a lot of these guys, and you're changing systems a lot.
And I think their quarterback had left that year that Harsin came to. That was a lot of carryover from there. I forget, Ryan Applin, I think is his name.
That's right, Applin. That's right.
I think he left that year. So again, it was almost a bit of a rebuild job at Arkansas State when he got there. So It wasn't the same team he didn't inherit the same squad that Gus inherited from Hugh Freeze. If that makes sense.
Exactly. So I don't hold Arkansas State against him. But here's my thing, and here's where his track record as a head coach really comes into play for me, and it's at Boise. At Boise, he was on the staff. He was the offensive coordinator at Boise, which means he was familiar with the guys that they had on roster already. He had been recruiting them. He had been coaching them already as far as the offensive side of the ball. And Boise, as a program, was very much the Alabama of the Mountain West. They were getting the best recruits in their conference. They had a lot of consecutive years of success in that conference. They were beating the big boys on the big stage, and they weren't always beating them, but when they got into these,
they were giving them hell.
They were either giving them hell or they were winning. So to me, I look at that, and if I hand the reins off to you and everything's already set up here, a great coach would be able to maintain that momentum. He lost a little steam from what Chris Peterson was doing. They were like losing no games every regular season and losing one under Peterson.
Right.
And then Harsin takes the reins, and now they're losing 2, maybe 3 games. They're still winning the conference. I think he won it 3 out of the 6 years he was head coach.
Yeah.
But under Peterson, it was better under Peterson. So to me, to see that you got the reins to a juggernaut and it lost some steam, especially this past season, like his offensive stats, and Mike will have to get into this for sure because I know he's got the numbers in front of him. Every year since about 2016, that offensive ranking for the conference and for the nation has started tailing off. That concerns me a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe there's some discontent with the program. I think something had come out in the last week saying that Boise had been talking about switching conferences because
he wanted them to go to a bigger conference to get exposed, to get better exposure.
Right. So he wanted them to get on the big stage. So it is completely possible. This shows up in a number of ways at work when you feel like the people above you aren't listening to you. Listen, we got to get in here. We got to do this. Maybe you're a little discontent with the thing. Now, as a head coach, it's your responsibility to block that out and channel that and make sure that the product that you put on the field is still the best it could be. But I'm a little bit concerned that he could not maintain that momentum from Peterson, and even still, he couldn't maintain the momentum of his program in the first 3 years that he had it on offense. Now, I'm not giving them flack for the defense. They put some defensive players in the league, but on offense, he could not maintain an offense that was as good as his first few years. And the recruit that he got, I think is it Hackmeyer? Brackmeyer? I'm trying to remember the QB they got up there now. He's had the same guy. This was his junior year, if I'm not mistaken. So continuity is not the reason they dropped off this year. Something happened and something's going on up there that let it kind of start slipping away from him. And coming from what he inherited, that concerns me a little bit.
Right. Moving on to the next. I know we moved on. Sorry, I dropped out there for a second, but I wanted to get to some of these comments that we have here because we've got some questions. A lot of people want to know this question, right? Like, who's going to be on this staff?
Okay.
Right.
All right. So who we know is not going to be on the staff, from what I've been hearing, is not Kevin Steele and Rodney Carter.
Right.
Those are two who you can bank on not being there. That's like addition by subtraction.
Right. Okay.
So in my opinion, that's a start. I haven't heard anything, and this is why I am personally indifferent right now. Because, and even to the issues that you pointed out, be about him as a head coach, you got to remember when they were thriving, he was the OC.
Right.
He was hands-on with that offense when now he's a head guy. He's not as hands-on with that offense, right? And he's known to let his guys coach, which is another plus that he has over Gus, is that I don't know if we're going to see much meddling from him, right? He's going to let his guys do their job. So that's a plus. But my thing is, we'll see what staff he surrounds himself with. And what I want to ask you guys is it to his advantage to bring guys from his current staff, or should he get guys who are aware of the Southeastern region, who have established relationships with coaches in this region? Is it to his advantage to pick guys who have experience in the SEC to be his assistants, or a mixture of both? What are your thoughts on that?
I think they just need to be qualified at the end of the day, right? We've not really had an issue recruiting at Auburn over the last, 15 years, really. I mean, I think, you bring in guys who know how to do the job, period. They know how to coach. They know how to recruit. He's coached some guys like Jay Ajayi over the years, right? Like, some people have gone on to the NFL. I'll get to stats later, but his quarterbacks have had better numbers than both. Right. So,
Right.
I think that, I'm not as hyper focused on recruiting, because I think at the end of the day, we're in the SEC, having things like the SEC network, some of the things that they're doing makes us premier in that way. So it's going to come down to player development to me. Get guys who could come in and develop these guys get the max potential out of them. That's what Gus was missing. So I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure what that staff looks like right now. It's just got offensively, the bar is low.
Yeah,
it'll be hard for them to do worse than we were doing offensively. Yeah, quite honestly. Defensively, you just need to maintain the status quo. We're producing NFL talent defensively. He just needs to keep that going, right?
Yeah,
his scoring defenses at Boise State were pretty good, somewhere between 18 and 22 points allowed a game, right? Like, I mean, that would be good for top 3 in the SEC this year. So whether he can reproduce those numbers, is left to be seen. But that's how I feel about the staff right now. Derek Mason would be a great name to have on this staff, I think. But you're right.
Do we know how he is as a recruiter? Because it's hard to tell at Vandy.
At Vandy, right? Yeah. So
that would be my only question about him. And again, Auburn can sell itself, but again, I do want some dogs on the recruiting trail. I'm not gonna lie to you.
And that's the big question, because we don't know what recruiting looks like in the Mountain West. Like, you get what's left after in that area, the Big 12, and
he's had number 1 class in the Mountain West.
Right.
Every year he's been there. So he's known as a good developer. I think his reputation precedes him as a developer of talent. And so he's been able to get kids for that reason alone. And he's even been able to steal a 4-star from a Power 5 school, every blue moon, but because of his reputation of getting kids to the NFL from Boise.
Right.
Which is impressive.
So, again, just kind of moving down the list here, I haven't heard this.
I haven't heard anything about that either.
Right. I mean, Shivers went on Twitter and said they want a puppet. Right. They want a puppet. I mean, he was pretty outspoken. Schwartz had a cryptic kind of tweet going on too. So the offensive players had been, fairly vocal, and the defensive players were kind of silent. So, I'm not sure. We're going to look into this one, but if there's any truth to that, I think that it will give teeth to a lot of the stuff that we heard over the last few days about how this search went. Right. I don't see anything impressive about this coach. By record, he looks good, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the SEC. By the numbers, I don't really see anything impressive either. We'll get into that. This is something that I'm hearing. I'm hearing some sunshine pumping about this coach, about how people like this hire, right? And so again, we'll deep dive in that when we get into the numbers. All I know is they're giving him the reins to allow him to hire who he wants. Again, the blessing and a lot of stuff coming out.
That's why I lean a little bit to the optimism part. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. If I see at least 3 former Auburn guys on this staff, I'm gonna be a little nervous.
Right.
That's gonna reek of the old way of doing what Auburn does.
Right.
I like Damian Craig. I do. I like Travaris Robinson. I do. But if I see too many of them on this staff, I'm gonna start to wonder.
Well, it's which ones that it would be coming back that make the difference. Listen, if we see Rodney Gardner, Kevin Steele, either one of those is a red alert. That's a red alert. That lets us know that he does not have control. Now, T. Rob, left Auburn with Muschamp. That was his guy. So T. Rob coming back and Damian Craig coming back. Damian Craig said, I'm done with this.
Right.
This is too much of a mess, and probably some of the same things that we already heard were going on behind the scenes. He got out early. I think that will be a good pickup because you have to be familiar. You have to be a good recruiter, which Damian Craig is.
Both of them are.
And instantly, if we know this guy lets his OC coach, then that's a win-win-win as far as I'm concerned. That's just enough of everything that it fits for the staff. The real question is, who does he bring? And I saw somebody in the comments bring this up. Who does he bring that he knows, and who does he get that knows here? Because
that was my question.
You know what? Underrated position. I am interested in his strength and conditioning coach hire. Right? Like, I mean, it's going to tell you a lot about the brand of football that they want to play, right? You know, Isaac makes the point over and over on this show that you need linemen built for your system, right? So if you get out, if you're trying to run, hurry up, no huddle, and you go out and you get a bunch of fat, slow guys, right? Like, you know, it's hard to run that sort of system. So I'm going to be very interested in how that changes. It seems like injuries have been a real problem for us. And I've been questioning the strength and conditioning program for years, right? Our high profile guys stay hurt, right? So I want to see what he's going to do there. You know, Isaac made this point. He says props to Allen Green, right? Like, you know, I think, you know, hey, man, if this is the beginning of turning the page at Auburn in this way, where the people who we hire to do jobs actually do those jobs, I'm on board. Winning the locker room is definitely going to be important. I think we're at a point now that what happened with Steele, right? Again, it's time to clean house. I don't see this happening at this point, right? The rest of the boosters have been fine, right? Allen Green, the search, right? Yeah, I agree. Like, listen, turn the keys over to this man, right? And then here's the question: whole new offense.
It's going to be different, guys.
Right.
It's going to be different.
Yes. Yeah, we've been watching a certain brand of football for 8 years now. And, you know, this is going to be the question. So I want to use this to segue into a little bit, just some quick stats, right? I'm going to put up on the screen here. This was Boise State since 2014, right? Let's disclude 2020, right? Because they could not have played the requisite amount of games.
Yeah,
sure.
But 10 games at least every year. So what I see in these numbers is consistent: 12-2, 9-4, 10-3, 11-3, 10-3, 12-2. Those are all seasons that we would take at Auburn.
Absolutely.
Right? Because what I don't see here is 4 losses as a regular stat. Right. So, you know, at least he was able to.
So he only had one solid year at Boise, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, according to Gus, 9-4 is a great year. Right. So I still can't believe he said that foolishly. But his coaching. But here's a stat that interested me. And I wanted to get you guys thought on this because, you know, if you watch the War Report, you know, right, that I have been hard on Bo Nix. And I've been hard on his non-development and his lack of fundamentals and situational awareness. So I was very interested to see what has he done with quarterbacks, right? And you know, for the full seasons that they've had, right? This is by year. This is passing yards, right? You know, he's got his quarterback throws for 3,000 yards a season. It seems like minimum. And I was wondering, you know, based on what you guys have seen, what can we expect? Can we expect a pass-heavy attack here with Bryan Harsin, or are we going to be a balanced team? Or are we going to be run? Because Gus started out run, play, action, right? That was us, right? Run. Right. Your quarterback just needed to be able to make enough throws to keep the play action. You know, you had to play that honest. Mm-hmm. And then he started trying to force it down our throats that this system was adaptable. And we were like, nah, I don't think that you need to prove that point. Just go out and find an athletic quarterback that can run this the way that you want it. So are we going to see this? And going into I talk about recruiting, it's going to be important. What kind of guy are they going to recruit? Demetrius Davis that's coming in, does he fit Bryan Harsin style of football?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because I haven't seen Boise with a mobile QB for real. They're mostly they've been pocket passers, basically. They'll roll out. They'll roll out, but they're still looking, again, Demetrius Davis can do that because on his film, we've seen him roll out of the pocket, still looking down the field. So he could still fit. But this looks like a balanced offense that focuses on running the football.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like is he's not married to anything particularly.
Right.
So basically, it's a type of offense that whatever the defense is giving, they really are trying to exploit weaknesses in the defense.
Right.
They're basically going to take whatever the defense gives you, which is something that we have screamed from the top of the hills during the Gus Malzahn's tenure here at Auburn. Adjust to what we're seeing on the field with the defense. But again, if you're married to your system and you're stubborn, you're not going to do that. This guy appears to be the antithesis of Gus in that regard.
Right.
And that if I'm Tank, I'm happy about this because Tank is going to get fed.
Right.
So, yeah. And that's what I was thinking was the reports are saying that he kind of works to his players' strengths and works against whatever the other team is on the other side of the field that day, does something and comes up with something to attack their weaknesses. And we like that because that's one thing we didn't like about Malzahn was he was stubborn. He was stuck doing it the one way he wanted to do it. And that wasn't even the way that we had the personnel to do it, which is why we looked so mediocre on offense for so many years in the last really 5 years. So that's encouraging if he is a guy that's I'm going to find what works with what we've got, and we're going to do that. That's encouraging. However, it is very misleading to put up those passing yard stats and win for somebody who has the most talent out of anybody in their conference. And he's bringing that here where we are dealing with 3, maybe 4 of the 10, maybe 4 of the 8 best recruiting Power 5 schools in the country. We are wrestling with them every year and losing, honestly, in a lot of ways. So that dynamic, and that's what's concerning. Again, that's what scares me a little bit. Is it's great if you can get 10 wins every year. You don't have the best players in your conference anymore,
right?
Like you don't. That makes a big deal. I mean, we've talked about on the show before when you can get the guy. As far as in your conference and around your level of competition, if you can get the best guy at a certain position or the best guy for being the best quarterback prospect in your conference, that makes a difference with what you can do, and it helps you to keep rolling and to produce those offenses and those wins. So the real question is going to be, can he be that? Can he make something not out of the best talent of his competition, but of competitive? We get competitive talent. We don't get the best talent. Can you do it while you have to get guys that are almost as good as the person that you're going to face every week? That's a big difference. So that's what concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, there's a question here. I'm going to go back. Can he save our recruiting class? What do we expect? How is this going to finish? Do we know how recruits are reacting to this?
I don't know. I don't know. I know of course, the current kids who are signed on to Auburn are optimistic and positive as they should be. But I don't know about kids who are kind of waiting to see who we pick up. That's something we'll have to kind of research and speak on. We got time to cover recruiting and talk about the impact of this hire.
Right.
But I expect to see some JUCOs though.
Right. Really Isaac, again, I'm gonna disagree with this comment. I did see some people trying to say, see, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. He was doing the whole time. Like that was in my ear the last 12 hours, right? And I wanted to debunk that. I don't think that there's any deal to that, right? So it's gonna be interesting here to see, right, now that we know that he's gonna get to hire his own staff. So let's recap what we know, right? Harsin is in the door. We don't know the details of his contract yet. I think that will tell us a lot about the conviction behind this hire, right? Sure. I really do. I think the details of his contract will tell us a lot about whether what we heard was true or false, you know. But now that he's in the door and they've handed him the keys and he's going to get to hire his own staff, right? You know, a lot of fans will be looking towards, you know, this isn't let's be clear, this isn't a rebuild. This isn't a rebuild. I think that with competent coaching, we can be competitive. We can be right back in the thick of this next season. You know, so what is the fan? We've been asked this question before. Now that we know who the guy is, right? What expectation should we have as fans for 2021? Right? Should we expect to compete immediately, or are we giving Harsin a pass for 2021, right, to get his system in place? Right? Like, what are we doing this year?
I don't know if I can answer that. Again, because we don't know who he's hiring, to who he's surrounding himself with. Because you got to remember, as much as I hated the hire of Gene Chizik, that hire looked better once he assembled his staff. Right. And so my thing is, whoever this guy surrounds himself with will really will begin to set our expectations. If he picks up a Dale McGee as a running back coach, if he goes and grabs some assistants, a Damian Craig here, and like the people who are respected, who are known for working well with quarterbacks, who will be hands-on with our quarterbacks, that's going to tell us a lot about what we can expect for the future, right?
Right.
And so to me, I don't know if I can even answer that question about what can we expect, because it's so much left to be. This story has yet to be told yet in completion for me. I don't know about you guys, but that's why I am indifferent, somewhere between indifferent to optimistic, because we still have yet to see this play out with the staff.
Right. This comment right here is everything for me. Right.
Trust and believe.
We have a quarterback competition.
I think he gets a quarterback, and I'm hearing there are a lot of quarterbacks who've entered the transfer portal. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go out and get a JUCO quarterback or a transfer quarterback just to push Bo, because again, we've seen old clips of him. He is no nonsense, and he is not going to tolerate Bo's foolishness, not for 1 second.
Yeah, I think for sure we're going to find out what kind of character Bo has next season, right? You know, we've seen some in our conference. We have seen some guys some successful quarterbacks lose their starting jobs to up and coming talent, right? You know, over at Alabama, Jalen Hurts I think that he is the example. I've never rooted harder for a former Bama player than I rooted for Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma because of how he handled losing his job to Tua. You know, he was a team guy. He exercised his option in his 5th year because he graduated, and he is now starting for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think he deserved it. I stood up and cheered for him when he started his first game. So what are we going to see from Bo Nix here? Like, does Bo handle this, you know, on 2 feet? You know, does he take this sitting down? Like, you know,
well, what I will say about Bo is, for all the things that we have criticized him for, we have never criticized him for not trying, and he's always tried to step up to the challenge. Now, whether or not he does well is another thing, but he's always at least tried to step up to the challenge. And I will think this could potentially light a fire under him, and he could at least begin to take the steps to improve. Again, whether he improves is totally up to him, but I've never seen him back down from a challenge, even if he looks crazy doing so.
Right.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you, because I'm sure somebody at some point challenged him to just stay in the pocket and watch the routes play out, and he doesn't do that. So,
there's no consequence for that.
There's
no consequence.
We don't know who Gus is. I mean, it's not Gus. I'm sorry. We don't really know who Bo is, because Bo has never been faced with the possibility of demotion. He had a unlimited green light with Gus. He didn't get benched when he played badly enough to get benched. He was only reprimanded by the wide receivers, as far as we saw.
Right.
And once it gets to that point, I think Bo knew that he wasn't going to get pulled. So he played like, I'm not going to get pulled. I would be delighted if Bo Nix had to compete in camp and got pushed to the point where it's like, listen, you got the job. If you look bad enough, I'm pulling you out of there. Like, I would love that. Give him a shot. I mean, Bo physically has the tools to be an excellent wide receiver.
All the physical gifts.
And does not have the habits, and he does not have the discipline to he's not a great, I say wide receiver, great quarterback. He does not have the habits and the discipline to be a great quarterback yet. There is nothing to teach you discipline like the threat of you're gonna sit down in a minute because what you just did is not gonna work. Like I'm waiting for the day that we're in a competitive game and he bails too early and he's scared to take that hit. And then all of a sudden he's like, no, that's it. Like Demetrius Davis is in there the next series. Like I would love to see that because then there's accountability. Right. I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't think any of us do. We got Demetrius Davis, which is still a big get. Like that kid looks electric and I'm glad he stuck with us. I'm glad we've got Bo or somebody else now because last year it was Bo or nothing. Like everybody else just looked like they didn't even belong on SEC roster. So I'm glad we have at least one person to push him. I hope, to your point, Caesar, that he goes on the transfer market and he gets somebody else to push Bo and somebody good. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who he was recruiting at Boise State or that transfers from there that he liked. Right. That that Harsin wouldn't be afraid to go to him. And I hope Bo gets pushed for real.
Grant Lloyd needs a transfer. Like, again, we were going to get a real number 2.
Yeah, and I think he's only got 1 year left, right? Like he was a graduate transfer, so he's done.
Well, this year doesn't count. Like then I think you can play again next year.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah, so go get someone who is can legitimately take his spot if need be to light a fire under him to let him know you're no longer secure. You can't continue to just do what you've been doing and there's no consequence. I will bench you.
Right.
And see how he competes.
Yeah.
Sink or swim, Bo.
You know what? Let's go here for a second because we threw out some names in terms of staff, right? But I'm more interested in the offensive side of the ball at the moment.
Fair enough.
What names here? And we've had. We're doing it for you guys, for the audience here. But we're going back over some names because we're talking about Auburn football all day, every day in our chat. Who do we want to see at OC? Who are the top 5 candidates for OC right now that you guys want to see?
You know what? I don't think it matters. And the reason I don't think it matters is because when you are an offensive coach, he is an offensive coach by trade. He was a quarterback by trade. Mm-hmm. I think he knows who either underneath him at Boise or somebody mentioned Kellen Moore because he's in the NFL as an OC. I don't see him stepping down to be a college OC, right? Unless Kellen Moore has aspirations to be a college head coach first. And I'm not
Kellen Moore, he's probably going to go to Boise to be the head coach if he returns to college.
That makes more sense, yeah. But the thing is, if you know offense, then you know who's innovating. You know who is giving your team trouble when you play them. You know who, when you watch their games, you go, "Oh, that was good." What I think is the hardest hire for him is defense. Offense, I think, again, if you know it, whatever area you work in, if you see that thing done by somebody else, you go, "Oh, that's good. That's good. I can learn something from him."
That's a good point.
Because he has that eye and that's his trade. I'm not worried about the offense. If anything, he could install a system and tell somebody, "Look, just run this, and then you'll get the idea."
Right. It's not going to be. It's not. I'll be surprised if it's a sexy big name on the offensive side.
Right.
I would be surprised at that.
Yeah, honestly, I'm okay with an up and comer just as long as they can coach a quarterback, right? The pro style, somebody mentioned in the comments earlier that he runs a pro style offense. Mm-hmm. And
kind of what Peterson did.
Right. And I'm okay with this. And let me tell you why. It is, if you follow Auburn in the NFL, you know that it is a joke amongst GMs that we ruin players, particularly quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Right. Jarrett Stidham threw for more yards than any rookie quarterback in preseason ever his rookie year last year. Mm-hmm. And the running joke was they were surprised that we hadn't ruined him before he got to the NFL. They were surprised that he had as much talent as he did because usually our quarterbacks need a lot of fixing, right, going into the league. Now, most recently on the defensive side of the ball, we've been putting starting defensive backs into the NFL like clockwork, right? We are putting defensive tackles into the NFL. We've been lacking a little bit at linebacker, but on the offensive side of the ball, you can't point to a lot of success stories. Right. So if this system sets these kids up better to transition to the pro level, I am all about it.
And that's another recruiting tool. That's another recruiting pitch.
Which was my next segue, right? Like, going into recruiting, because we're getting some questions here, and people are just asking, can he recruit? And I think that if you're selling a pro style offense, because here's the way I see this playing out, fellas. Year one, the cupboards aren't bare. You come in, you fix the offensive line, right? You get them, you gel them as a unit. You find a starting quarterback. And if all the pieces around stay the same, I think he could win with this squad. I
definitely expect him to go out and get some tackles.
Right. I think he could win with this squad. Let me not go get ahead of myself and say you win the SEC West, but you are competitive, right? You have a 9-win season. Recruiting gets a lot easier going into 2022.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You get some marquee wins on that schedule. I'm not sure how our schedule sets up next year in terms of I'm not even sure it's set in terms of home aways.
I think we got Georgia and Bama at home.
Right.
We got Georgia and Bama at home.
Right. And so, so if that's true, then there's some things that sets up well for him.
Right.
To have a decent year in year one. That seems to be a thing at Auburn. Like Gus came in, took over a 3-19, right? And went to a national title. So I'm stressing that I don't think this is a rebuild. I think this hire reflects that our administration didn't think that it was a total rebuild. They just needed to get new leadership, fresh blood, fresh ideas, a fresh attitude, and somebody who will come in and relate to these kids. Not that this has any merit, but when I looked at him, he passed the eye test for me, right? Like he just looks like a football guy, right? Like, he's got that kind of football swagger to him, and there's something to be said for that, right? A lot of the successful coaches in our league, before we move on to our last segment of the night, I will say a lot of the successful coaches in our league never coached a game in the SEC before they got here, right? Urban Meyer came over from Utah with mad success. As a matter of fact, they were the only other undefeated team, because if you remember 2004, we had 4 undefeated teams going into that championship game. It was USC, Oklahoma, Auburn, and Utah.
Right.
Alex Smith was his quarterback, and he came over. Saban never coached the game in the SEC before he came to LSU, right? So there's some guys who have come from outside the conference and done well, right? Is Bryan Harsin that next success story? TBD, right? But we're hopeful. We're hopeful for that. Again, we're very skeptical of this hire, but I want to stress to everybody watching, we are rooting for Auburn. First and foremost.
We want us to succeed.
Right. So, I don't want to, now that they've hired the guy, I want to see him succeed. There's a lot of people pulling the strings that want to be right. And as fans, we just want to do what's right.
Right.
And I think that's where we're all at. So, moving into this last part of the segment, right? Like, I wanted to focus a little bit more on what expectations are. What does the future look like of this program under Bryan Harsin? What are we transitioning from? Let's talk about what we just came from, right? Gus ran a clean program for the most part, right? He was a disciplinarian. I would argue he was even a little bit more heavy-handed than he needed to be in certain discipline situations, but he wasn't afraid to kick a guy off the team.
Right.
But some of the offensive players' comments tells me that there was something going on in that locker room. And we had a comment earlier that said that he needs to come in and win the locker room, right? How does he do that? How does Bryan Harsin come in and win the locker room?
Honestly, I'm kind of extrapolating from the type of coach he seems to be, kind of a hard-nosed, like you said, he looks like a football guy. I think he would have to come in and really lay down some authority, say, this is how we're going to go. We're not going to put up with this. We are going to do this. If you thought you had a job safe, you don't.
Right.
Be here for, I don't know when he's going to take over. It'll probably be after the bowl, but
absolutely.
Here's your schedule for spring practice. Here's your new strength and conditioning coach. Like he has to do that up front, because not only is he something very different, he doesn't. I don't know if he'll have buy-in like if we had gotten a Hugh Freeze or if we had gotten
Lane Kiffin.
a Lane Kiffin. You know, their reputations kind of go, oh, it's going to be fun around here. Well, you're going to put up some numbers but this is not that. All right. This is not somebody you knew. This is not somebody you're buddy with. And I think commanding respect early will get him that buy-in for the short term. Winning will secure it for the long term. But early, he's going to have to probably be real hard-nosed to get the respect of the team. And I don't think we have the type of guys who are like, we insurrecting, just putting up a big fight about it. I think we might have some guys leaving if he turns some people off. But, they have the right to do that.
I think that happens with every coaching change.
Right.
That happens with every coaching change. So if it happens, guys, it's a part of the process. I think what allows him to win it, to me, this is what'll help. The best player will get onto the field.
Always.
And I think that's going to open everyone's eyes, because we know of several guys who never saw the field who probably should have, because they were behind people who were either injured or probably not as good as they were. There was no reason we should have saw Tank reach his potential that late into the season. If he comes in and says the best players will play, and I think we in our chat we showed a video of him when he was at Boise talking about guys who were not focused, not in the film room, not learning what they were supposed to, and that's why you're not seeing the field. Right. Basically, if he lets the guys know, if you work your butt off, I will get you on the field and utilize your talent. That, to me, you got the locker room, because what do they want to do? Get on the field. And if you're telling people this is how you do it, let's get to work, I think you got those kids, those who are really serious about moving forward. Right.
I agree. This comment right here, if we don't build up this line, the kid will never make it to the next level with his running style. This is, I'm assuming, is about Tank. Right. Do you remember the great at South Carolina who had, I'm assuming that's his great running back, Lattimore. Yeah. Marcus Lattimore. Right. Yeah. Line, this is an interesting thing, and whoever his line coach might be his most important hire.
Absolutely.
Right. Because
it will be
in our league, without the big uglies up front on offensive and defensive line, you're going to have a really, really, really hard time against the Bamas and the LSUs and those guys who got those monsters, right? Georgia's coming at you. Right. We talked about, the SEC, we're going to cover this in another segment, but take a look at this SEC championship game. Right. If you couldn't block, you had no chance in this game. And for Florida, who had essentially a non-existent running game, their pass blocking was spectacular for a one-dimensional team. I thought I watched that game and I thought, Bryan, I think it was your worry about them being one-dimensional.
Mine, actually.
Was it you, Caesar, like about just, hey, they're one-dimensional? I think Isaac kind of said the same thing too. And I thought that they would be competitive in this game. It turned out to be a really good game. But what they were able to do because of their line, given their shortcomings in their running game, was nothing short of spectacular. Right? They had, to be in that game with Bama, and Kyle Trask was their whole offense, right? I think really spoke to not only the kind of quarterback he was or is, but the protection they were able to afford him to sit back there and carve Bama up to the tune of, both quarterbacks broke the record for most yards passing in an SEC championship game. They both went over 400 yards, right? Yeah. So, what's Harsin going to be able to do with this line? That's something that we haven't really had to worry about at Auburn over the years. It's always seemed like our line has just always come together at some point, right? And Tank, I don't want to get the kid hurt. I don't want to get him hurt.
Yeah.
So if he's going to be Bryan Harsin's next Jay Ajayi, fine. I'm all about it. But a balanced attack is going to be key to making sure that he has lanes to run through.
Yeah. Sure.
And it just didn't happen consistently enough under Gus, right? And I'm of the opinion that you don't really need a run game if you got a quarterback who can make every throw, and you have a decent short passing game. I really but we can have it. We don't. It's not mutually exclusive. We can have it all, right? And I think that this is set up for him that if he can come in and fix this line and get the quarterback to be average, right? His quarterback numbers. I think the guy who started for him at Boise State this year had 61% completion percentage. That number depressed me. It did, because I just kept thinking, wow, man, we've seen this already. Bo was 57% last year and around 62% this year, right? And we need an upgrade in that area. So, I keep coming back to player development. This was what did Gus in. Is that players weren't getting better under Gus. They either came in good and got better on their own because they were already that dude, or they just stayed stagnant or regressed. But I can't really point to a player on offense that I said we made him into the great all SEC.
Right.
One player in Gus's tenure that we transformed into all SEC. To me, the best offensive player he had in his whole tenure as head coach was Trey Mason. Right. Trey. Right. 1 year. Trey was a monster. He was a Heisman candidate. And I was thinking, are these the guys we're going to put out every year under Gus? This sounded in 2013, we were psyched.
Yeah.
Well, we could not be, Trey could not be stopped running.
We couldn't see the ceiling in that year. But
he was automatic first down every time we handed it to him. If Harsin can get us back to that, to running the ball like that, because I'm not going to lie, his average rushing yards per game in the Mountain West was pretty disappointing. It wasn't great. It was somewhere under 130. And you're going to have to run for more than that if you're going to want to win the SEC West every year.
Well,
I will be curious as to who he surrounds himself on that staff. Right. To me, that'll be very telling, because just like recruiting, like we're not concerned with recruiting because, again, it depends on who you surround yourself with. Mm-hmm. Whoever he surrounds himself with and who they can develop will go a long way towards determining what we can expect offensively. If he brings the same guys, maybe. Right. So we'll just see. We just have to see. It's so much to be determined with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to add the caveat that, so his rushing offenses aren't that great, but he is a former quarterback. And I expect somebody who was a quarterback to favor the quarterback or to favor quarterback play.
Right.
I know that we say he lets his OCs do their thing, but if you can't get the bell cow, because when Ajayi was there, he was running the ball.
Right.
So it may have been, what do we have? Let's do more of that. So if he wasn't getting the offensive lineman that run blocked as well as they pass blocked, or he wasn't getting that bell cow running back, then maybe that's why he passed so much. I don't know. I wish I had a better look at what the complexion of recruiting was in the Mountain West. What guys are they trying to get versus what they ended up with? What were these guys labeled as coming out of high school? Did they end up reaching that potential or even better? That would really give us some insight into what he's going to do with this offense. But we're guessing. I mean, we want to guess, but we really don't know. And that's the exciting, but also kind of scary part is we have no idea what that guy is going to do with this talent in this area, with this program. We don't know.
We don't know. To be determined.
Mm-hmm. We seem pretty split in the comments over OC and DC. You guys really hate Muschamp. I think we all can agree we don't want Muschamp back.
Yeah, he didn't want to be here.
He's good.
We don't want Muschamp back.
Stability. We want some stability in our assistants, and if they grow and develop to get a head coaching job, I think Muschamp wants one more crack at being a head coach, and if he has to stay for two years to build his name back up and leave, he'll do it. And I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with that either. Hey, let me ask you guys this interesting question. Pro style offense, how big is it a deal? Is it putting Bo Nix under center now?
Well, we saw what he did this year when he went under center in Arkansas. He almost threw the game away, right?
Yeah, this is going to be a change up for him. I mean, from what I understand,
he never played like that before.
Yeah, the type of offense that Patrick Nix ran as his high school coach, he's never been under center. Yeah, his entire football career. Is this going to be? I think we're going to learn a lot about
which
the type of player he is.
Which is
Right.
why I think he's going to. I'll be surprised if he does not get a transfer QB to come in. I'll be surprised.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go out on a limb and say that I think that our season next year will go as however the quarterback position goes.
As is most years in most places, because that's just the nature of the position, but especially next year.
Next year, right? Like, I mean, you know, in some places you can have a game manager and then if you have an excellent run game. But the way this line is looking, right, I think that we need a plan to help our line out a little bit. And this is the thing that I bemoaned a lot about how we call plays this year. And I'm hoping Harsin can come in and fix this. Is just, you know, over the last few years, how many times, fellas, have we been watching the game and said, do we have like a slant route in the playbook? Where are the passes over the middle of the field? Where are the intermediate throws?
Yeah.
It seems like
plays to get Bo, like to play to his strengths, like run a bootleg for him.
Right.
If he wants to, if he has happy feet, run a bootleg, run a play action, do things to get him in his comfort zone instead of asking him to do things he's not comfortable doing.
Yeah, I'll be okay if I never see another jet sweep or
I don't want to say
quick wide receiver screen, right? Like I don't
want to see no more screens as our short passing game.
Yeah,
right?
no more throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage regularly,
right?
Without good blocking wide receivers and expecting these guys to just do something with nothing every single time.
See, that's the difference right there. The difference right there is that we had wide receivers with very specialized skill sets. Seth was a leaper and a physical guy. Schwartz was a sprinter and a fast guy. Neither one of them were excellent route runners. We don't have an excellent route runner on our team. And so it seems like guys were there to do the one thing that they could do. And that's all they did. They just had to be in position enough. We all lamented multiple times that it seems like Seth got disengaged if he wasn't getting the ball. And then he even looked like he kind of had a tail at one point. If he wasn't getting the ball, he doesn't line up like he's ready. He lines up kind of like, all right, I'm not getting the ball, without the willingness to block. And we've all said and complimented, that's something that we see at Alabama that we love, is that those guys get after it when it comes to blocking in the run game and when it comes to blocking in the passing game. We didn't see that here. Right. And I think that this type of coach, when you try to get guys ready for the next level, it's not just, hey, you're going to get the ball and get a bunch of numbers. It is being accurate with your route running. It is being physical with your blocking, maintaining blocks. And that's not the most fun thing to do. But if this coach has been running a pro-style offense and getting players to the league, I'm reserving judgment because I haven't watched Boise State players that closely. But you've got to think there's a good shot that he's going to make improvements in that area in the offensive line. I know they put offensive linemen in the league because, you know, when you see the graphic on NFL Sundays and the college they come from, so it shows the line and every level of the offense and defense. I've seen Boise State players on there. I've seen Boise State players starting on defense at multiple levels. So I'm encouraged that he'll get something from these guys that that hasn't been asked of them. And that is a consistent professional effort that mirrors what's necessary to get to the next level. Gus didn't get that out of these guys. And I think this coach can, and I am excited about that.
Right. This guy says in a normal season, Harsin has a 4K passer, 1,300-yard rusher, and 2,000-yard receivers. That would be amazing. If we can get that kind of production out of this offense. I mean, certainly I think he's going to have the tools. I think I've been saying all season that Anthony Schwartz is probably the most underutilized talent in college football. I don't know how we got the fastest guy in college football, but somehow our quarterback finds a way to overthrow him 70% of the time. This is an amazing feat. So if he can fix some of these things, I think we have something to look forward to next year. And, you know, if you guys are watching this for the first time, I know we have a lot of new subscribers and a lot of people tuning in for the first time, or you just subscribed to us recently. This is a no sunshine pump zone. We are not here to tell you why Auburn is going to win every single game. We're here to tell you what we see as fans, because the national sports media, if you watch these games, every time Bo made like one throw, they would say, "Oh, look, see, this is why they recruited him." And we're like, "What? He's having a terrible season. He's awful, right? He's not doing good." So
that was one throw. Come on,
yeah,
man.
one throw, right? In going into next season, I really do. Again, no sunshine pump, but I really believe that similar to how the program that Gus Malzahn took over in 2013. Harsin is in a similar position, if not better, in terms of talent. If his process and his scheme could come in and just fix some of the internal deficiencies that we had, he can win now.
And you got to think that locker room is not as broke as it was when Malzahn inherited it.
Right.
The morale was all but gone. So you even with that, he has something to work with.
Right. But it comes down to player development. If you cannot
100%.
get the right guys on the field, if you can't get the most out of them, we may not physically be able to have crowds at this 8A game because of what's going on in the world right now. But let's be clear, this 8A may break a record for all-time interest.
Absolutely.
In our program.
Absolutely.
Right? People are going to be hyper focused on what we look like moving forward. Now, some of that attention will be positive, some of it negative because of the clowns show that was our coaching search, right? But now that he's in the door, Coach Harsin, we support you, right? I'm excited to see, a change. It was definitely time for a changing of the guard, right? And I'm ready to see, what we'll be able to do here in terms of consistently competing in the SEC West. Now,
100%.
In closing, there is something that I wanted to address because it's been you guys have said it. We've been active in our comment section, kind of having a healthy conversation and back and forth with you guys. But I am maintaining the position. Here's my considered opinion about it, that beating Bama is no longer the standard for whether you can be successful as the Auburn head coach. Because Gus had the best record versus Saban of any coach still coaching in the SEC. And he's gone, right? He essentially was beating Saban every other year. I think to win we want to win titles. We do. But you can make this playoff without winning the SEC West. You can do it. And I if we had won some of these games that we should have lost, we had beat South Carolina, right? Maybe beat Texas A&M. Bryan, you weren't high on Texas A&M this year.
I was not.
Right. Gus would still have his job. I honestly believe that. If he wins those two games, he still has his job. Right. Even losing to Georgia and Bama, which our record versus them is pathetic. I think that if you're the new coach, you don't have to beat Saban every year, but you need to get Georgia or Alabama.
Or at least even if you lose, don't look like you just showed up with no preparation.
No preparation. Right.
And don't do that.
That's the difference. And when people point to Gus's record against Saban, it's like, oh, he did the best of everybody. Yeah, whoop-de-doo. Who cares? It is much less to me that he beat Saban as much as he was able to. It's that when he couldn't beat him, he got just drugged. Like, that's the thing. He was terrible against our best competition, our steepest and biggest rivals. He was terrible. It's not just losing the game. It's losing the game by 30 and 40 points. It's like, listen, you can't even be competitive. I know you know what you're doing. You just beat them last year. So either you got to have everything working just right, an all-time defensive line, or an all-time rushing attack, or the best offensive line, quarterback, running back combination that we've had in 2017 since Cam was here. So you've either got to have everything, or you're just going to have us out there looking bad. There's a medium to be had here. You don't have to win them all, but you do have to compete and look good competing. We'll take some close losses here. That's fine. That's fine. I would love this 6-4 if we lost 24-21 to Georgia, or if we lost 42-33 to Bama or something like that. Like, let it have been a game. But Gus couldn't muster that. I mean, that's part of the reason why he's gone. And he also lost some we all know that we had no business losing. So he's gone, and we bring up Gus as a reference, but we think that there is a better medium to be had, and it's not just whether or not you're beating Alabama, even every other year. Listen, if you're good enough to beat Alabama, then we should have been better than 9-3. last year.
Right.
If we were good enough to beat Alabama last year, we should have beat at least either LSU. Well, well, we could have beaten LSU with a better offense last year. Let's be real. LSU or Georgia or Florida. Like, there was something that we can get out of these seasons when we're not just all world. So I would like our basement to be 8-4. I don't ever want to lose lose more than 4 games, because 3 of those are paid for wins.
Fair enough.
Right.
So can you now go win an out of conference game, which, depending on who we got, it might be a toss up. North Carolina wasn't going to be a pushover this year.
Right.
Penn State might not be a pushover. Look, listen, we give anybody some leeway. We'll give anybody some leeway. Be competitive. That's all we're asking.
Right. Well, fellas, we certainly have a lot to talk about moving forward.
Speculate more about assistants, because I know a lot of that's the hot topic now is who does he hire. We may even do a separate segment about assistants, because it's just a lot of names being thrown out, and we don't even know where this guy's mentality is at. So we can just do when we throw out just random names and talk about that.
Yeah, you know what? I think as information as his staff starts to take shape. Right.
Yeah.
We start to see some direction to this. Isaac made a comment earlier, like, how awkward is this going to be for Chad Morris and Steele coaching this bowl game, knowing that they're going, right? Like, I have some questions about that. I think we'll get some answers to those questions, but we'll be back at you guys tomorrow with some short videos, some more focused segments on what's happening in around this program. We're still going to be doing position breakdowns and giving you guys a lot of the content that you've requested, and we're also going to be doing a really deep dive on recruiting going into National Signing Day in February. So as always, we are the War Report. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. A lot of you guys are just joining us. The best is yet to come. So just stay tuned. Hit that notification bell so you can get notified when we are going live or dropping content for you. We are the War Report on Twitter and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. Fellas, any closing remarks here?
I just want to hear some assistants' names so I can see where we're going, man. I'm
sure.
ready. I'm ready.
For sure. Caesar?
Nope.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting. We have a lot to talk about between now and the Citrus Bowl. So we'll be back at you guys on Saturday with a live and dropping some stuff for you here at the end of the week. So I'm signing off. As always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.